Doorbell ringing. A strange and terrible event occurred in one of the villages of Yakusha. Witnesses of this incident are still alive. On the evening of January 5, 1985, the family of a teacher at a local school gathered on the first floor of an apartment building at a table for dinner. Father, mother, two school children and mother's brother, who came to visit. Everything was going well. They had already eaten, and, as usual, there were conversations and memories of the old, when suddenly the electricity went out. The house was plunged into complete darkness, so that it was difficult to see each other. The adults remembered the electricians with a strong word, and the children, as if waiting for this, began to walk around the room by touch and frighten each other in every possible way. It quickly turned out that there was no electricity in the entire village. This has happened here before, so a supply of paraffin candles was always kept in the kitchen for this purpose. They began to light them. In some windows of the house opposite, flames also appeared. And suddenly outside the window there was a blink and a clank. It blinked very strongly, so that it lit up the whole area, and for a second it became almost as light as day. Who knows, maybe the branch fell from the wind and shorted the line. The flash was, as it happens from the arc of a welding machine, a cold blue color, only much stronger. The men decided to go outside, smoke and find out what it could be. Neighbors were already gathering on the landing. A mother and two children remained in the apartment. The mother was in the kitchen, and the children were wandering back and forth from room to room, when suddenly the girl, who was alone in the bedroom at that moment, pointed to the window and said, "Oh, dog." The boy went to her and asked, "Where?" The girl pointed to the window and said with fright, "The dog was looking out of the window just now." The boy cautiously walked closer to the window, but saw nothing. There was a flower bed under the window, but there were no traces on it. In the moonlight it was clearly visible. A dog, whatever it was, couldn't reach a window, despite the fact that it was the first floor. "There's no one here. What are you talking about?" the brother said, but his sister stared at the window and said, "I'm afraid." And she went into the room. Further events developed rapidly. The children were in the main room, talking about the dog, when suddenly the doorbell rang in the hallway. The mother, holding a candle, went to open it. Later she recalled that she did not immediately realize that the bell was not supposed to work. Opening the door, she saw that her husband was standing on the threshold, and let him in, saying, "It's open, why are you calling?" But her husband did not answer her. He came in, stood and looked at her. A few seconds passed when, looking at her horror, she realized that it was not him. The husband was taller and shouldered, and what came in and stood in front of the door was shorter. A humanoid creature, as if with her husband's face, but distorted as she later described, as if carved out of wood. She also remembered the eerie look of narrow pupils and grayish-bluish skin. His clothes were incomprehensible, reminiscent of whitish rubber. The creature somehow pressed into a corner behind the door and stared at her from under his brow, making a strange murmur. In a terrible voice, his mother shouted at him, "You are not my husband. Go away. Here, get out of here. Do you hear?" Immediately the door opened a little, and the creature seemed to slip through the doors, which immediately closed with a loud crash. The blow was so strong that the dishes in the sideboard clinked. The woman stood in the corridor with an unblinking gaze, and immediately the light was turned on, and the doorbell rang again. The children did not see the creature itself, but they heard the sounds it made and the way the door slammed. Later, on the landing, the neighbors who went out to the rumble smelled an unusual smell, reminiscent of the smell of burnt wiring and sour milk. Man, returning from the street, said that, returning home, they heard a strong slam of the door and saw a blue flash in the public corridor. Also at this time there was a thick fog outside. There was strong humidity. For a long time, the woman could not calm down, and at night she had a terrible dream. What was that? There is still no answer. A year later, the tenants moved from the apartment to the city. Now another family lives there.